What up, guys? Mike G with MDG Collections on hand today, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so let's get right into this. All right, so these are 5 things you do not want to do in a brand new 2020 Dodge Charger Daytona Hellcat Widebody. And this goes for any car for that matter, but this is the car that I have. This is the car that we're in right now, so that's why I titled it what I titled it. So we're gonna start the car, but it hasn't been started in 2 days, and then we're gonna jump on the highway, and then I'll give you guys the 5 things you should not do in a brand new car. So let's get her in track mode, or actually I'm going to put it in custom mode, which is my mode that I have, that I set up for people that have never driven this car. So we got the power in 717, transmissions in track, paddle shifters are off, traction is on street, suspension is on street, and steering is in track. So we're going to jump on the highway right now and talk about these 5 things that, like I said, I would highly recommend, and of course Dodge recommends them. Now, you hear this acceleration right now by me, like I just showed you guys. I have over 1,100 miles at this point. I'm almost to the 1,500 mile break-in period. As you know, right now I can launch this car, so what is more aggressive than launching this car than that alone? So 500 miles is technically like the first break-in period. That's why they unlock the launch control for you. So I can kind of be a little aggressive, but not too aggressive, because I'm not really to 1,500 miles yet. And then after that, they say you can track the car. But the first thing that I would say on the list that people love to do in these cars, and that you should never do in these brand new 2020 Hellcats, or if they're brand new especially, not some down the line Hellcat that you got that was used and it's got like 50,000 miles on it, more than likely it's already broken in, you know, so you can pretty much do those things if you really wanted to. But I would say number 1 is no burnouts. What you do not want to do is burn out in this car early on. You know, I see people do it all the time. People, you can do what you want. It's your car. But if you want to protect your investment, I would stay away from burnouts early on, because you're gonna damage things. The transmission has to get broken in, the pistons have to get broken in, and a lot of things have to start to kind of like mesh together before you just start jamming on it. You need to ease into these things. It should be a gradual ease. You should not be slamming on the accelerator. Number 2, I would say no aggressive throttling, and mainly from a dead stop, also known as launching this car. So I would say no more than 45 to 50% throttle you should be putting on this car when it's brand new. You should not be taking off in this car aggressively early on, simply because, once again, you do not want a huge stress put on this transmission. It is just not something that you should be doing. You know, what you should do is if you want to get up into the high speeds like I've done before, I got to 1,000 miles. I'm sure I was past 500 at that point, but just a gradual increase in speed, you know, and basically learning that throttle. And you know, when I say learn this throttle, not just stepping on it to the floor, but gradually riding it until you get up into those speeds. And you know, those speeds should be nothing crazy early on, because you're still breaking the car in. So these recommendations are also, I would say, and what Dodge says is to protect your transmission and to make sure your transmission does not have a lot of stress on it early on. That's one of the main things you're trying to do. You do not want any transmission problems in these cars. Now, right now, I'm on the highway workbound, and of course, we're in the middle of this pandemic, so it's like an open raceway. These highways are like an open raceway, so they're definitely a lot of fun. I'm at that point where I can do these things. You guys really shouldn't. But if you want to do it, it's on you. It's your car. You do what you want. Number 3, I would have to say no redlining. In other words, if you're in manual or if you're in automatic, you know, it boils back into the, you know, not stepping on the accelerator and being very light with the throttle, and not just jamming on it, allowing this car to redline. So your RPMs should not be getting anywhere close to redlining. And I'll give give you guys an example right here. There it is. So, you know, keeping this car away from redlining is key also. Once again, it just puts a lot of stress on your transmission, and the gearing, technically, it's not good for the gearing. These gears need to kind of, they need, like I said, they need to mesh in, need to kind of, you know, kind of configure themselves over time properly and not be forced to change gears very abruptly and very aggressively. It is just not good for the transmission. Number 4, no aggressive braking. So, you know, everything boils down to the transmission. The more you put stress on these brakes, the harder you brake in these cars. You got to remember, these cars weigh 4,500 pounds, and yes, they have big 6-piston Brembo brakes that have great stopping power, but you got to remember, the faster you're going in this car, and then now you're aggressively braking without downshifting, you know, because when you downshift, you actually help preserve your brakes and your rotors and all that, because you're bringing the engine down, you're bringing the transmission down as you're downshifting. But if you just have this car in automatic, you get up at high speeds and you just aggressively brake, you're putting a lot of stress on your rotors, on your brake pads, and of course on the transmission. So, like I said, the key thing with this car is protecting your transmission. Your transmission is like the heart of this car. It's like the brains of this car almost. So you know, you mess it up, and a lot of other things will start to mess up, and you can even have some problems down the line with your supercharger. Number 5, I would have to say no heavy revving the engine while you're in idle. You know, we like to go to areas in New York City or wherever you are, and you know, rev this car up to let people hear how it sounds, whether it's stock or if you get a muffled delete. You know, you want to be in idle and you want to rev this car up. That is not something you should be doing early on in these cars. You know, once again, you guys already know by now, it can really start to give you some problems with your transmission. So you do not want to rev this car up early on when it's brand new, when it has not been broken in, at least until you get to 500 miles. But I would say even past that to 1,500 miles, you know, before you start doing any kind of heavy revving this engine while you're in idle. So we're gonna get ready to park. I'm gonna show you guys the recommendations. If you stuck with me this long, I'll show you guys exactly how they have it set up in the Uconnect system. And I've done this video before, my last Daytona 392, but I'll do it for you guys on this Hellcat. So let's park and then we'll pick back up. All right, so while we're idling, I got the car in eco mode, but what you want to do is you want to go to your apps right here. All right, you want to go over to where it says Vehicle User Guide. All right, right there on the corner. Yours may be somewhere else. All right, please wait. You're going to get this blue screen with the eye icon for information, and it takes a little bit. And then once it comes up, you'll see a list of options. You're going to choose the first one, Vehicle Operations. When you go into Vehicle Operations, you will see where it says at the very top, Reference Essentials, View Initial Ownership Tips for Getting Started. You're going to touch on that one. All right, at the top you'll see Get Started, and then the second one you will see First Month of Ownership. That's the one you want to touch on. All right, when you touch on that one, you're going to see where it says Engine Break-In SRT. You want to touch on that. All right, in that menu, it should load. All right, it'll say please wait pretty quick, and here we go. Engine break-in recommendations, SRT. All right, had to close the sunroof. It was just way too much of a distraction. So like I said, engine break-in recommendations. All right, and it will show you exactly what you need to do, even from where it says 0 to 100 miles. All right, so 0 to 161 kilometers, depending on where you live. But it will tell you, do not allow the engine to operate at idle for extended periods of time. All right, it's funny, I didn't even look at this before I did this video, and I just have these things in my mind. So 300 to 500 miles is the first break-in period. Exercise full engine RPM range, shifting manually at higher RPMs when possible. They always put when possible at the end. They're not saying do it all the time. And then the second one, do not perform sustained operations with the accelerator pedal at wide open throttle. And then they go on to say, maintain vehicle speed below 85 miles per hour and observe local speed limits. So that is what you need to keep in mind when you are between 300 and 500 miles. Now, when you get to the first 1,500 miles, before you get to the first 1,500 miles, they tell you do not participate in track events, sporting, driving schools, or similar activities during the first 1,500 miles. So they do not want you tracking this car. They don't want you going to drift schools or anything like that, where you can learn how to be aggressive and drift in this car. Anything that's very aggressive with this car at long periods of time while you're on that track for a long stretch, they don't want you doing it until you hit 1,500 miles. If you want to do it before then, be my guest. It's your car, do what you want to do. But these are just recommendations by Dodge and of course by me that I've had these cars coming up. This will be my 4th year having a car like this with this type of an engine break-in, and it's something that you want to keep in mind. So guys, like I said, just recommendations from Dodge, recommendations from me, from my own personal just experiences with these cars that I've had. This Daytona 392 before this. It was the same recommendations. If you have a 392, a Scat Pack, or a Daytona 392, it's the same recommendations that I just showed you here on this Daytona Hellcat. And if you are thinking about getting these Hellcats, a 2020 wide-body Hellcat, or if you're thinking about getting the 2020 Daytona Hellcat Widebody, either one, they're both the same as far as the break-in period. So guys, try, and I'm telling you right now, it's going to be tough, but try and take care of your investment. It's very hard to do unless you just don't care. So like I said, guys, just be safe out there. We're in the middle of this pandemic still here in New York City and all over the world, especially here. They want to call us the epicenter of this. We're always the epicenter of everything. So make sure you are safe. Please make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you have that bell click with all post notifications turned on. And I will see you in the next one. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be a wrap.